Those Days with the Monsters, Part 54. It had been some time since the Cumans had acted normal, or at least what Kirill thought was normal. They were willing to answer his questions still, and some of them looked relieved when he came into the room, but the cheery and carefree atmosphere was gone. When they were talking to him, the Cumans were either silent or talking quietly among themselves. There were no jokes or play matches. Kirill found the change very disturbing. After 3 cycles of the lights in the ship dimming and brightening again, Kirill found himself sitting in on another council in the dining area. This time no one spoke unless it was necessary. There were no whispers or side comments. Everyone listened closely whenever someone spoke. It was strange how very focused the Cumans all were on every scrap of information available to them, and it reminded Kirill of the time they had all concentrated entirely on tearing apart the Tizix on the ship. When the Cumans got like this, it sent chills over Kirill's spine. Right, first things first, Bashful, what do you got? The captain had his hands folded in front of him and seemed to be inspecting them closely. It's more what I don't have, Cap. Bashful's hologram didn't appear. Her voice sounded over the speaker on the table. Kirill wondered if she was busy, or if she even could be busy. Wasn't she the ship's AI? Was it possible for an AI to be too busy to appear? There still isn't anything. No EM radiation, no spectroscopic tagging, no jump ripples even. Whatever they did, if they even did anything, there's no data leaving the ship in any way we can imagine. Any ways we can imagine? We don't have any particulate, so it's not going off as matter. It's not going off as jump cracks or ripples, any kind of EM radiation, or even gravitational packets. I don't know any way to send data that doesn't have a medium. Do you, babe? Dopey shook his head slowly. I don't know. It would have to be completely unlike any data system we've imagined. I'd say the laws of physics don't allow it, but I'm not sure that's true. He stared at the center of the table as if the spice shakers there offended him deeply. They might have discovered a new law, but we should know if they had. Emphasis on should, I guess, but they'd have better tech if they'd done that. The whole war would be hopeless if they had something like that, right? Gotcha. The captain fiddled with his hands. Bashful, if they do have some kind of data going back and forth, what are the odds they could track the ship and get a hit off? With her cross-section? Bashful's voice was light and even. How many people do you know who could hit a minibar across colonized space? Only one, and he's right there. The captain flicked a finger towards Happy, who looked away, looking slightly flattered. But I want odds. Hard numbers. After a moment of silence, Bashful spoke again. Somewhere between 1 in 30 trillion and 1 in 34 trillion. So not very likely. How's random walk? Well, we managed to alert a long-range gun, but we also blew it up, so there's that. Happy bared his teeth while Kirill's frills flushed bright red. This was the first time he was hearing about this. As far as I could tell, they don't have a concept of a kill box, so we should be clear on that front. Kirill's frills pulsed fuchsia, and he leaned over to the person beside him, who happened to be Alex. What's a kill box? He asked quietly, not wanting to distract the others. It's kind of a military tactic, I guess. It's an area where there are lots of weapons. You can shoot anything in it from many sides. Like a mine? Alex seemed to think about that for a minute. Not exactly. I need to pay attention. Can we talk later? Kirill's frills went purple. Sorry. Alex's mouth curved, though she wasn't showing any teeth. Kirill thought it might be meant to be reassuring, but he was too focused on understanding the idea of a kill box to be sure. Any changes to the ship? The captain was now asking. You mean refraction? Grumpy scowled at the table. I didn't do a full surface spectrum check. Awfully chancy though, wouldn't you say? Happy added. Nothing to compare it to, right? Don't think it'd do him much good. The captain groaned. Ugh, true. Bashful. Keep us ready for a return to jump. I don't care about the power cost. We're gonna dip our toes in the water, see if it's hot. He sighed. Looking around at the crew. They don't know we have a jump scanner anyway. They can't jump us, even with sparklers. Still, we We can't go back to the station if we're not sure. You'll understand, right? Most of the Kumans at the table nodded, but Kirill got the feeling that something at one end of the table might be about to explode. He didn't want to look, but the voice told him. It was Sleepy. What about the spaceman? Sleepy's hands hit the table with a heavy thud. You can't tell me he's staying on here. What else would we do? Stop at the station? You'd be in trouble if we're wrong. We can't use a shuttle because there's no guarantee you'd be safe that way. The captain grimaced, as if he'd bitten into something very bitter. I don't like it either. But what can we do? Damn it, Cap. You said this would be safe. It should have been. The captain's face was strangely grim. I'm sorry, Sleepy. I didn't even think of something like this happening. Say sorry later, Cap. Right now, find an answer. Kirill's frills turned a bit orange around the edges. He couldn't believe he was doing this. Trying to address a Kuman War Council? How could a cargo jockey do something like that? But he was still doing it, somehow. Yeah, spaceman? Kirill blinked. He hadn't expected anyone to instantly leap to listen to him, especially in a war council. He took a second to process Sleepy's quick response, then spoke. Please don't blame each other. I asked. I decided to come with you, and I asked to be here. It's okay. Sleepy made a strangled groaning noise that Kirill didn't know how to interpret, but he didn't criticize the captain any further. The meeting ended soon after, and the Carrie Fisher gently left jump space and floated quietly in an empty pocket of space. Even within Tizik space, there seemed to be trade routes, crowded areas, and vast dead pockets where no one came, and the Kumans had found one far from main areas to wait in. The hum of the ship came to a stop as the engine switched off, leaving only small lights along the edges of the wall to guide the crew. Kirill wasn't sure how long it was supposed to stay dark, but it was already irritating him. The fibrous paper journal was well used now, but he couldn't see well to write in it in this dim light. Strangely, the Kumans seemed almost unaffected by the low light level. Kirill wondered how sensitive their eyes actually were to be unbothered by the dim light. Murmurs rose from Grumpy's area of the ship. Kirill hadn't been able to visit that area for a while, but Captain Amelia was on the station, so he thought she shouldn't show up here. Then again, he wasn't sure if she could actually teleport. Kirill peeked into the room, but Grumpy and Tinker must have just left. The other door was open. He could hear something about getting Hook to help with the heavy lifting, which seemed absurd, given that Grumpy and Tinker both had almost twice Alex's mass. But Kumans defied logic anyway. This was hardly the most surprising thing about them. This area, like all the others on the ship, was dark, lit only by thin strips of lighting along the walls and a few glowing sticks that looked like they were meant to be used in very dark, enclosed spaces. Kirill could see some of the materials the Kumans had collected from the ship, and somewhere in the room something was making a low mechanical hum. Kirill was never able to tell afterwards what started it. The hum, the glint of light on the metal parts, the empty room. What made his stomach plunge towards the ground and stifled his breathing was never clear. All he knew was that something had gone horribly wrong. If he had seen his frills at that moment, they would have been purely and utterly black. He turned to run. The hum became a rapid series of rattles as pieces of something clattered together behind Kirill. He didn't stop then, but when the ship shook and a glare of blue-white light cast his shadow brilliantly down the hall he was aiming for, the surprise got the better of Kirill, and he turned to look. Metal held together around a rotating black tape, forming a surprisingly large circle in the middle of the room. The inside shivered, as if light were distorted inside, and the blaze of light was pouring out of it. Then, horribly, Kirill realized what he was seeing, as a black shape blocked out the brightness. This was the technology that would turn the universe upside down. This was a jump gate, and very familiar creatures were emerging from it, looking around the darkened room. Kirill realized he shouldn't have looked back at the jump gate. He couldn't seem to move. Part of his mind realized that he should have time to run as the Tizix's eyes adjusted to the dark, but he couldn't seem to make his legs work. Then the first one out of the gate turned, and 7 glinting eyes fixed on Kirill. Their appendages were very strong. Kirill felt them grip his shoulder, felt himself move. The world shifted. Dark bulk was overhead, and then underfoot. Something was squishing against his foot. It seemed to be stuck in some kind of ball or sphere. It was very green, a kind of shade the humans might call yellow-green, and a sort of greyish shade too. What is this stuff? There wasn't time to finish the thought. More appendages swarmed him. Kirill tried to lash out but found his legs gripped tightly.
Wicked claws those are. Be careful.
A rattling click.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Kirill bit down hard on the appendage gripping his neck and heard a hiss.
I've got him. Secure the area.
A shout came from down the hall, a full booming one compared to the rasping voices of the Tizics.
Hey, the hell?
Alex. Kirill gripped the appendage around his neck and bore down hard.
Alex, help!
What the? The voice was coming closer. The Tizics in the lead hissed.
I'll take them, get what you can.
Kirill watched the Tizics level his weapon, but it didn't seem to mean anything. In seconds, green sprayed on the walls, soon drowned by red light as the alarm began to shriek.
Damn it, it's the blood devil! Retreat!
Kirill caught a glimpse of Alex's face, distorted by an emotion that he couldn't name. It might not even have one. The only appropriate word seemed to be predation. Her teeth were bared, not in a curve but in a snarl, and her eyes were wide and wild. For just a moment Kirill felt both terror of that face and reassurance, an eyelet in the confusion and flurry of the panicked Tizics. And then her face disappeared, replaced by rippling air, the feeling of turning inside out, and strong blue-white light. Kirill gasped and bit down on the arm holding him again, slashing with his front talons, reaching out for the jump gate. But even in the middle of it, he realised something was wrong. The air sizzled, methane and hydrogen clashing with the air of the Kuman ship still in his lungs.
No atmosphere exchange. Not now, not now.
But Kirill's body stopped listening as the reaction began. It was difficult to keep his eyes open during atmosphere exchange, but if there was one time Kirill could do it, it would be now. His gaze was pinned to the jump gate, barely processing the shouts of the Tizics.
Shut it down, don't let that thing get on base. Name of the hungry, shut it down.
He hadn't known the Tizics could sound so frightened. The jump gate showed a large swathe of green as it splashed on the other side, a bit spattering through onto the floor. Distorted sound spilled across from the other side, and the smell of oxygen and methane mixing filled the air. Kirill could see a dark blur, colour of Alex, shooting towards the gate at astounding speeds, and he thought he could hear her voice.
Kid!
The gateway broke with a spark, sending a wave of blue flame through the room. Kirill landed hard on the floor, unable to turn his head to see what had happened to the Tizics holding him. All he could see was 4 tiny twisted shards of metal at the base of the jump gate.
Fingertips. She must have been very close. I'm sorry, Alex. I don't think I was good enough to win a quarter of the time. Sorry it went to waste.
Atmosphere exchange ate up the rest of Kirill's energy, and he closed his eyes, breathing quietly and hoping he'd still be alive when it was over. Thank you for listening.